Greetings, brothers. Welcome to the Blood Angels Commander channel. Greetings, brothers. Welcome to a pre-recorded episode of the Army List Show. I have a wedding tonight, so this is going out pre-recorded. And today we're going to roast the mods army lists. I figured we'd do something different. If you want your army list reviewed, not roasted, on the channel, then you could submit it. Just head over to the Blood Angels Commander community page and just post your list up from Battlescribe, and we'll get it on the show as soon as possible. This week we're going to look at our 3 mods lists and we're going to roast them. I don't know if roast's accurate because the mods lists are probably pretty good, but we'll try and roast them. We'll see what they've done wrong. Bearing in mind I just got absolutely smashed this week on a live show where I got about 10 points in a game, so I mean my authority on roasting people is probably pretty low right now. But I hope you enjoy the stream. I wanted to put some content out even though I'm not going to be here, and if you do enjoy tonight's video, then it would mean a lot to me if you consider liking this video, and if we get to the end of the video and you've enjoyed what you've seen, then do please consider subscribing. Okay, so let's talk about the mods, and if you're not familiar, my mods are Mark, Tony, and Rezial, and Mark goes by the Chief Librarian in the Discord, and Tony goes by Sanguinius in the Discord, so just you're aware that these are the 3 mods. We're going to start with Mark's list, and we'll see. Okay, Mark likes to name his lists. Every time he makes a list, he names it. It's pretty cool. Mortem Aetheria. Hopefully I said that right. It's a 2,000 point list, and he's got 5 points left. That sounds like there's space for an Infernal Pistol, and he's starting on 2 CP. For Assassination, he's giving up 10 points. Oh, that's pretty cool, he's added this. For Bring It Down, he's giving up 2 points. And for No Prisoners, he's giving up 12. Ugh. Okay, so No Prisoners is a really good pick into this list. Let's see why. We've got Dante. He's the Warlord, so no Heroic Bearing. And we've got Sanguinary Priest and a Jump Pack. Okay, I was going to say maybe he should have Rights of War on the Sanguinary Priest, but let's see. We then go into Elites. We've got 5 Death Company Marines with Jump Packs and Chainswords. We get another 5 with all Thunderhammers. We get the Sanguinary Ancient, who's got the Wrath of Baal, and there's your Rights of War pickup. Okay, so these guys are all moving 14. You've got your 3/7 Sanguinary Guard, and he's doing these with all swords. Mark said that he was going to model 7 with swords, 7 with axes, and 7 with fists, so you could tell the squads apart, but then run them as all swords. We have Fast Attack, and it's Assault Marines. And this must be like a 10-man assault squad, yeah, 10 man. A bunch of chainswords, a couple of plasma pistols, and a plasma pistol, a combat shield, and a power sword. Oh, you can take all 3, I think, on the sergeant. That's nice. And then Mark loves his plasma and scepters, actually. It seems people either love or hate plasmas, or plasma and scepters. I guess if they could hurry up and change it so you just took mortals as opposed to you die if you roll a 1, then I think we'd see more in scepters, but right now it's you die if you roll a 1 on high power, so some people love them, some people hate them. Me, I'm kind of indifferent. I've run them a few times. They're not my biggest favourite unit, even though they look very cool. We then have a squad of Eliminators with the Instigator Carbine and a couple of Las Fusils, and then we got the Whirlwind for the fight last. So interesting. So this list, because with the Whirlwind and the Eliminators and the Inceptors, you're looking at like bang on 500 points of shooting. You have that one assault squad that's going to be really good for potentially scoring, because it can be combat squadded if he needs to. I was going to say, as I say that, I realise it's been years since I've ran an assault squad, so let's just check that I'm not bullshitting. Assault squad, there'll be Fast Attack, and I'm like 90% sure they can combat squad. Where is it? They get Melta Bombs, that's something to remember, because that is a pretty useful CP, pretty useful way to do mortals against vehicles, and yeah, of course, they can combat squad. Okay, so the assault squad can combat squad, and they're going to be your action monkeys here, because this is, I was going to say, this must be a Vanguard detachment, because we've got no troop choices, so the only obsec we're getting is from Rights of War. But what we do have is 2 Death Companies, 3 Sanguinary Guard, the Ancient, Dante, the Priest. So this week my video talked about Dante, the Priest, and the Ancient, how they can all really buff up the Death Company's damage. You got the Inceptors that can obviously benefit if they drop down within 6 of Dante. You've got the Eliminators to hold another backfield objective. So overall, I think this is a pretty decent list. I don't like not having OBSEC troops. Into some armies that can make things pretty difficult. Dante's saving his VP here because he's obviously losing. Sorry, VP, CP. Dante's saving the CP because he's spending 3 in his detachment, 1 on a relic and 1 on a warlord trait that are both on the Sanguinary Ancient, and then he's getting 1 back from Dante. So he's spending 5, he's getting 1 back, so he's starting on 2, which isn't horrible. Considering it's not a battalion, 2 is actually an okay number to start on, because I think we're seeing battalions recommending starting on 2 or 3. I guess the question is 2 5-man assault squads going to potentially score you more points than like a couple of squads of incursors? And then I guess you, obviously by taking the Vanguard detachment, you don't need to worry about that 3rd troop choice. It's an interesting question. I guess what you do is you give up some OBSEC, but you bring some more killing power, right? Because you don't have to spend 300 points on troops, you've just spent 180 on essentially 2 squads that can kind of do the same, and they're kind of more mobile. It's interesting. I personally am not running Vanguard, but I did used to run Vanguard patrol detachments quite often. I think that in the current meta, there's enough like the night rules. Obviously, when I used to play my Vanguard patrol, knights, I believe they used to. Did they even used to count as more models? They may be counted as more models, but they didn't have OBSEC. And if you play Chaos Knights, basically the whole bloody army's OBSEC, and everything counts as 5. So if they just want to throw armigers onto all your objectives here, you're going to struggle to get any points for primaries. Assuming that you can't kill an armiger every turn, sure you can kill them, but like, it'll hurt your primaries if you're coming into something that's got a lot of OBSEC. It's a very good killy list. It's good that it's all swords. Yeah, he has 5 points left over. There needs to be another Infernal Pistol. Either, I'd probably put it in that Death Company with chainswords. Like, just switch out 1 for an Infernal Pistol. I don't see any disadvantage in that. You know, bolt pistols aren't going to kill anything. If there's an odd turn that you're within 6 inches, then you can get 1 shot off with your Infernal Pistol. So that's what I would do. I'd either put the Infernal Pistol in the Death Company or the Vanguard. And overall, I think this is a decent enough list. It's nice to see, like, something very different though, because we've been seeing a lot of battalions that are. This is very core at the moment, like 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard, 2 Death Company, and Ancient. We're going to see this in so many Blood Angels lists. I'd say it's like, I guess it's what people are counting as meta, maybe, and we're maybe going to see it in like 80% of lists, and it's very good. I mean, as long as you're the one making the charge. Oh, excuse me. As long as you're making the charges and you can't fight last, is a very good solid combination of things to have. It's just a case of what do you bring around it. And sometimes if you bring all this and then you have to bring your 3 troop choices and your characters, it really squeezes you. And that's kind of how I found it. It like squeezes out any other options. You get hemmed into the full melee. So I guess in this case, if you like Inceptors, and I mean it wouldn't have to be Inceptors, you could do attack bikes, or you could do some sort of other heavy support options. We looked at the Hammer Strike. No, the Thunder Strike, the one that's got the Ballistic Seal 2. I think it's the Thunder Strike. As some people are saying that, like, that's the one that's the new Storm Speeder that's seeing some competitive play because it's got its Ballistic Skill of 2, and it's got basically, like, essentially it's like Heavy 3, Strength 9 -3, right? Because these are kind of the same profile. And then a couple of rocket pods. So I think you could make this work. I think it's decent. I think I wouldn't play it because I prefer having a little bit more OBSEC. But if you just want to have a killy list and you think that you don't need OBSEC, then this is a cool list. And props to Mark for always coming up with unique names for his lists. Good on him. Alright, so let's have a look. So that definitely didn't get roasted. But let's have a look at Rezial next. And I kind of know, if Astrath isn't in this list, I'm going to be very disappointed. Okay, so you've got 3 CP, 2,000 points, and this is a battalion, and he doesn't have Astrath. We've had so many arguments on Discord about him Thinking Astrath and Massive Doom is brilliant. I needed Astrath to be in this list, but okay, this will be interesting. So he's got Dante as a warlord, he's getting +1 in his CP. He's got his Sanguinary Priest with the Teeth of Terra. And he's upgraded him to the Chief Apothecary, but he hasn't given him Selfless Healer. That's interesting. So the upgrade to Chief Apothecary is going to let him heal 2 units, but he isn't going to get that free revive for 0 CP, and he's made him a combat character, which I think is the right upgrade on the Priest. The Priest doesn't live, so you want to give him a Teeth of Terra that gives him 8 attacks on turn 3 in the charge. They are Strength 5, they are -2, they are 2 damage, so it's pretty decent. And then you've got Librarian with Veil of Time, Might of Heroes, and Null Zone. Psychic Fortress has kind of been dropped because of the Armor of Contempt rule. Psychic Mastery to give him that +1 to cast, which is really, really helpful, especially on Null Zone, because Null Zone casts on a 7. Mighty Hero is going to let him buff 1 infantry model, and then Veil of Time is going to let him like reroll some charges. Okay, we've got the standard double Incursors 1 assault squad, only the assault sergeant has a power sword, and I actually like this. I think it's really good. If you've got 5 points at the end of your list, I would say it's probably more value giving your Assault Intercessor Sergeant a power sword than giving an Infernal Pistol. Because if these guys ever get into combat, the chainswords into something like Armor of Contempt are not good now, so power swords is going to at least give you some attacks with high AP to do some chip damage. We got 2 Death Company, both with 4 hammers and 1 Infernal Pistol. I really like this as well. I think it's a cost-effective way of having like a good Death Company. And that Infernal Pistol, it can be swingy, but if it swings on your way, that's 8 additional damage on top of all these 4 Thunderhammers. It can make your charge or your Forlorn Fury charge much better. We also got the Sangre Ancient with Rites of War, and he's running Visage of Death. So rather than adding Obsec, he's running Rites of War and Visage of Death, right? So rather than running Wrath of Baal, he's running add and remove Obsec, which is really interesting because that gives him 4 characters, which I don't like because it means 13 points for Assassinate, and also it means like you spent like just shy of 600 points here on characters. This is 465 plus 115, so like 580 on characters, which like I feel is like way too high. I don't like going over like 400 points. Typically my lists are over 400, but not much. So going almost 600 on characters, I really dislike. I feel like the main reason to take the Ancient is for Wrath of Baal, because that 2 inches additional movement is so powerful. If you're going to include the Ancient, then I think you want to include him. The Visage of Death could have been given to one of your other characters, but I guess it depends on how you're going to run your army in your list. You've then got 2 squads of Sanguinary Guard, and these are 8s. These are 7s. Okay, 4 swords, 3 axes on both, which is fine. I think at the moment I would prefer 5 swords and 2 axes, but like that's kind of inconsequential. They're so similar. I'm absolutely fine with this loadout. You've got the Multi-Melta on the Land Speeder, which is good for basically like something like behind enemy lines and or popping an enemy vehicle with a Land Speeder coming in from reserve within half its range, so 12 inches. And then also can also be used for like engaging all fronts, very good. Eliminator Squad, and you get 2 of them, and they've got the Sergeant with the Bolt Carbine, and the other 2 Eliminators have Las Fusils, which gives you that sort of range chip damage. I'm not sure how 2 squads perform. I haven't run 2 squads myself yet. I need to. It gives you, I guess, 4 shots if you move weapons ballistic skill 3, if you don't move ballistic skill 2, and then also the whirlwinds in here as well. It's nice to see some people still hang on to the whirlwind, because I think a lot of lists have been moving away from it, but I think if you need to turn off Overwatch and you need a fight last anywhere on the board, then nothing does that the same as the whirlwind. Okay, slightly different list. Very similar elite choice of double Death Company, double Sangard, and then the Sang Ancient. You've got 1 more elite slot here, which you didn't actually need. I guess we're seeing a bit of a push into those Eliminators, and we have talked about how people are seeing those Las Fusils Eliminators as very powerful. The Land Speeder, I think, is good because it's mobile and it can do damage and it can score points. The troop choices are obviously good as well, and then the Priest, the Librarian, and Dante, all good. I'm personally more of a fan of the sanguinary discipline at the moment because I think that ran with Death Company, it can provide more value. Null Zone, a lot of people think that, I guess, Null Zone on a librarian is very good. I failed to mention he's actually spent 10 points on a combi melta here on this librarian, which I guess makes sense because you can jump in, you can Null Zone, you can shoot that combi melta. You could do it slightly cheaper with an Infernal Pistol, but the Combi Melta gives you a little bit more range. But I suppose if you're null zoning, you need to be within 6 anyway, so an Infernal Pistol could kind of do the same thing. You'd want to shoot the thing that you've null zoned. Okay, this librarian is a good librarian, though. I think if you were going to run a Firstborn librarian now, I would probably run Veil of Time and Null Zone. The third power is either going to be Might of Heroes or the Scourge power to do sort of like a more targeted smite. Making him Chief Librarian is good as well because it gives you options for, like you said, potentially you can do Psychic Interrogation and or you can deny the opponent to do that. So a little bit less fire support, a little bit heavier on the characters. Characters used right for Blood Angels can be very good if you can make sure you have them in the right positions for Angel Sacrifice. Combine that with a Fight Last from the Whirlwind. It's pretty decent. This came in at 2,000 points exactly, starting on 3 CP. The only thing I think I would prefer is to run the Wrath of Baal and spend 1 more CP and move the Visage of Death maybe onto my... I mean, you could put it on either, right? You could put it on your Librarian or you could put it on your Priest. I actually kind of wonder the logic behind having both Rites of War and Visage on Death on the same character. I guess if he's with the Sanguinary Guard, that would be fine. It might give you a little bit more flexibility if there's on another character, but a lot of top players are running... they're actually running the Priest with Visage of Death and Rites of War, and... but I've seen, I think Sam ran the Captain with Visage of Death and Rites of War, so both those combos are good. I've got no problem here. I actually like the fact that he's gone double 4-man squads on Thunderhammers, because Rezial used to run a 10-man Death Company, and I think 2 5s now. I think that's just way scarier. And then Dante for full rerolls on them. Yeah, I mean, the other thing you could do here is you could get one of your Instigator Carbines to run Quake Bolts. I think that would be really good in this list as well, because obviously that'd be a way to counter the -1 to hit on all those Death Company guys. But I think it's minor. So I don't know if there's any roasting in this list either, but interesting to see. Yeah, he's getting roasted because he's been banging on about how good Astaroth is for ages, and Astaroth didn't make the list, even though he has 4 characters. So you're roasted, Rezial, on only having... on not including Astaroth. Okay, Tony. Third list of today. And we are flying through these, so hopefully you enjoy the sort of shorter stream. Let me move this, because he's got this, like... he's got this written out like it's serious business. Hold on. I don't want to cut it off what he said with my face. Okay, so Tony has said 1996 points. Yeah, it's annoying when you get there now and you can't fill it up, isn't it? So Sanguinius plays with Nethel and Blood Angels. We have Dante. He's still not sold on Dante, but the extra CP is nice and he can buff up the Sanguinary Guard or whatever. Yeah, I'm still not sold on Dante even with the extra CP as well. I'm still kind of sold on my Chapter Master. So he's a Librarian with a Jump Pack and Might of Heroes and Null Zone. He says he still finds Null Zone super important. I mean, yeah, some people think Null Zone is super important. Yeah, I guess Null Zone and lose your Psyker, or unleash Rage potentially and keep your Psyker alive. That's the way I see it, and you guys know that I like to prioritise units being alive, so that's why I've leaned on it that way. Then he's got the Primaris Tech Marine with Master of the Forge and Soul Warden. The Soul Warden aura is nice, especially if the enemy is going to go after your armour. Keeping them alive is super valuable. So he's got Hero of the Chapter, and the big weakness at the moment is Mortals, and this goes a way to mitigate them, and I still run a lot of vehicles. And he's no joke in melee. Yeah, the Primaris Tech Marine is no joke in melee. He gets like 8 attacks. Yes, he only has a weapon skill 3, but he can do a bunch of damage. And also, Primaris Tech Marine's a great Quake Bolts carrier because he has that Forge Bolter, which is an assault weapon, meaning he can move 6. He's got a ballistic skill of 2, which means he's shooting 24, and he's hitting on 2s. And obviously, he can shoot a single shot from the Forge Bolter to essentially fell the opponents. And if he needs to, he advances as well, so a minimum between 2 and 7 more inches. So technically it gives you 32 to 37 inch threat on that Quake bolts, and that reaches pretty far across the board, and that would be on BS3 if you did advance them. But 30 inches, I guess, threat on BS2. Right. Assault Intercessors, he's got them in at 100 points, so I assume that means he took a Power Sword or something on the Sergeant, or a Plasma Pistol. I think the Power Sword is a much better pickup. He's going to run 2 squads of Infiltrators. And I haven't run Infiltrators for a while, but, I mean, the Deep Strike Denial is no joke. Tau and Elder Deep Strike, I can piss them off, and if I have 2 Infiltrators in my list, yeah, you can piss off everybody if you've got 2 units of Infiltrators on the list. 2 units of Infiltrators can almost screen one half of the board out. If you daisy chain them apart behind some cover, that's a giant. I mean, if you think about it, if you daisy chain them apart, right, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, you've basically got the 2 guys probably 10 inches apart. Then you add 12 in each side. You can potentially screen out 36 inches of sort of like a. It wouldn't be a circle, but it would be sort of be a square with circle ends. And the square would be 24 inches across, and then you'd have like a circle at each end of 12-inch diameter. It's pretty massive how much space just 5 Infiltrator squads can screen off. Okay, we've got a Calidus Assassin, and he's going to use that for screwing with his restricted CP. I don't know if CP feels that restricted anymore, just because you always get one in the opponent's turn, and typically, maybe apart from like interrupting or a savory roll, you aren't using them in your opponent's turn. So I haven't had too many problems with CP, but I guess we'll see. We've got a Death Company with 3 hammers, because he's cheap. I think that's a typo, because 3 hammers should be 170 points. Actually, I think there's definitely a typo here, because I think 4 hammers at the moment is 175. No, 165? Yeah, 4 hammers is 165. So he's only running 3. Oh, but then he's running 3 other Marines. Okay, so he's running a 6-man squad. That's a very strange number to run because of Forlorn Fury. I would definitely make that 5-man squad and try and spend some points elsewhere. He's running a Leviathan with the Siege Drill and the Grav Flux. The Grav Flux. Oh, the Leviathan has a 2-up save with the Armor of Contempt and a 5-up invuln. Still a bit overcosted, but I think he can do some work. I actually think the Leviathan's great now. You hit him with -2. He's toughness 7. He's saving on a 3. He's -1 damage. I actually think he's great. I don't think he's overcosted when you compare him to the Redemptor. The only disadvantage of the Leviathan is he's not core, so you can't give him any sort of rerolls. But that's why you bring the Tech Marine, to give him +1. So if you've got the Tech Marine in there, I think the Leviathan's actually genuinely pretty good. Again, though, his melee is going to benefit hugely for Quake bolts. So I think if you're going to run this, like 2 Redemptors and Leviathan, you want Quake bolts, because you want them to hit on 2s when they get into combat, because Weapon Skill 3 is going to be their biggest downfall. Right. We then have 2 Redemptors, one with the Macro and Onslaught, and the other with the Macro and Onslaught as well. And this is lots of AP to help everybody else's Armor of Contempt. I'm not sure what he means. Lots of... Oh, to help with everybody else. Sorry. Okay, and then 7 Sanguinary Guard. Sanguard are great. 7 will kill just about anything in melee. Swords are better than axes. Yes, we can all agree that swords are best right now. This is time that we need the more Sanguinary Guard meme, because 1 squad of Sanguard, Tony, is not enough. So your roast... Get rid of this Calidus Assassin. The screwing with CP, I don't think it's going to be that worth it. Is there any way you could get rid of the Calidus Assassin, maybe get rid of 1 Death Company Marine, sneak in a 2nd squad of Sanguinary Guard, maybe go with 2 6s or something? That might give you enough points to fit that in. Then have a Landspeeder with a multi-melta. Quick, cheap, relatively tough. Arguably not tough. What is it? Toughness 6, 6 wounds or something. Usually they die to stiff breeze. They might kill off something. I like to stick it in. I don't know if I like to stick it in contact. I try and get it within half range and multi-melt or something. Sometimes you can make an enemy character the closest target and you can snipe them with the Landspeeder. That's something you could do. And then you've got the Whirlwind, and it's still super important, says Tony. So that's 3 lists. All 3 of the mods took the Whirlwind. So that's cool to hear. Tony says, I don't like competitive SKU lists. I've found over many years playing that lists that lean heavily into 1 unit don't do well until they... Lists that lean heavily into 1 unit do well until you run into a list that unit doesn't do very well into. Yeah, so while 3 units of Sanguinary Guard seem to be very popular, I think it's too inflexible. So if you're going to a tournament, might be okay with the kind of win big or go home approach. For every list we see win tournaments, you don't often notice the pile of similar lists that came in the bottom half because they got unlucky with matchups. With a balanced list, I'll never have the easiest game, but I should be able to have good stab against anything. There's a good mix of range and melee here, and the ability to play a range of different secondaries depending on what I'm playing against. Again, none of these are super easy, but it gives me options to play what I think works best into my opponent. You're not a hardcore gamer. Yeah, we know that, Tony. You're not super hardcore. But you do have 3 characters in here. I, I don't dislike a lot of things about this list. I think that, like, you probably don't need 2 squads of infiltrators. You can probably do 1. You probably also don't need the Callous Assassin. You could do, like, maybe you could do a Death Company as your second squad of elites. Like 1 Sangre Guard, 1 Death Company. 3 Dreadnoughts can do a lot of work. They are also kind of susceptible to certain fire. Like this week I got rinsed by support cannons, D cannons from the Eldar. So they're, and the Tau have the railguns and stuff. So Dreadnoughts have some weaknesses, but I don't necessarily think the weaknesses are against infiltrators. So I'd probably maybe do 1 squad of Incursors. I'd probably lose 1 of these Death Company Marines, then do either a second Death Company or Sangard, lose the Callous Assassin. But, what works for you works for you. And I've played 3 Dreadnoughts in Blood Angels before. I've played it a bunch of times. I get to the top table of a GT, boom, 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 using a 3 Dreadnought list. And that 3 Dreadnought list, I think, ran Sangre Guard and Terminators as my other elite choices. I don't remember if I had a 6th elite choice. Maybe I just had the 5 elite choices. Oh, Blade Guard Veterans, that was it. So I ran Blade Guard Veterans, Terminators, and Sangard, and then the 3 Dreadnoughts. And I guess that list is super outdated because we've not seen Blade Guard Veterans since Armor of Contempt release. It kind of made them irrelevant almost. But, yeah, 3 Dreadnoughts can work for Blood Angels. They're obviously devastating in melee. These ones all have melee weapons, so they all can do minimum of 4 or 5 damage, really, in melee. So if any of the Dreadnoughts get in melee, it's huge. I guess 1 squad of Infiltrators to protect the battlefield with a Whirlwind, I think, is all you possibly need. Incursors, Assault Intercessors, it's good. I think Quake Bolts would add a lot to this list. And I think I want my Death Company to have the ability to form Fury, so I think I want it to be a 5. I don't want to have to spend I don't want to spend 2 CP for this 1 extra Death Company. I'd probably you could lose that 1 extra model and add a Thunder Hammer and have the 4 hammers, and that would be better. I don't know if you're saying you're cheap on points or you're too cheap to buy. Surely you've got enough bits to convert another guy into a Death Company with the hammer. Okay, so if you've enjoyed the stream so far, please do consider subscribing. There is going to be a bonus list now, and that is going to indeed be my army list that has 3 squads of Sangre Guards. So by Tony's... Did I roast Tony there? I think I just did tell him he needs Quake Bolts. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, roast. Get rid of the 4th character. Come on, guys. 4 characters. It's too much. It's not Hero Hammer anymore. You guys tell me this, that it's not Hero Hammer. So you shouldn't have that many characters either. Okay, I'm going to talk about my list for 2 minutes to end up this week's stream. And I know it's a bit shorter than normal, but we'll be back to normal next week. Hopefully you guys still enjoyed this stream. Okay, so I'm starting with 2 CP. I'm still running my Chapter Master on a bike with Gift of Foresight and Armor Indomitus. This mainly is to try and make him some sort of Angel Sacrifice character. I could run Adamantium Mantle, but I've changed out and I'm now running Master of the Codex. So that's enough. If he's alive, which he typically will be till like turn 3, because I usually sit him, because I'm running double Dreadnought, I'm usually sitting him, maybe turn 1 he's giving Death Company Chapter Master rerolls, turn 2 he's giving a Dreadnought, so he's not super exposed. So potentially I'm going to make my CP back that I've spent on this, and potentially I'm going to make 1 or 2 more back with a little bit of luck. I'm running Mephiston, and I guess I'm the only person who's still running Meph. I run Unleash Rage and Wings. He is unreliable as crap for casting. Sometimes. The tournament I was at a few weeks ago, he didn't fail a cast the entire tournament, and he denied like Psychic Interrogation against multiple enemies multiple times. So Mephiston, I guess, is a swingy character. Casting on a 6 is like a 72% chance. So sometimes he can cast all day long, it seems like, and then other times he fails notoriously. Casting on a 5, as in if you'd gone like a generic librarian with the Psychic Mastery, is like 81%. So there's definitely value in that, and obviously that affects rerolls as well. But Mephiston is survivable. Toughness 5, 2 up save, 5 up feel no pain. I like his survivability, and I guess I've traded off my other librarian for this. And then I'm running the Sanguinary Priest with Rites of War. I want to run an Ancient, but I don't want to run 4 characters. So that's where I stand. So that's why we've got the Priest here. And I think getting my Death Company into Assault Doctrine is so worth it. If you watched my video just a few weeks ago, and I'll make sure it's linked at the end when we talk about the best buffs for Death Company, the Sanguinary Priest gives the Death Company the most buffs in turn 1, essentially. So that's why he's there. Okay. Standard double incursor assault intercessor. This is fine. If I had the 5 extra points, I would put a power sword on here. I just haven't actually made any assault intercessors with a power sword. I need to do that. I need to put that on my to-do list. And then I have Death Company with 4 hammers and a chainsword. And then I have both double redemptors and both have rocket pods. The rocket pod 5-point upgrade feels kind of worthless. Maybe that's what I should drop one of these rocket pods for. The power sword. Very occasionally it feels like the rocket pods do any damage, and the onslaught cannon there is really to dish out damage. I think part of me kind of considered running this list with Dante, so I'm not spending 3 CP here, I'd actually be getting 1 CP, and then maybe putting in like a couple of Contemptors with double Volcons. Double Volcons, I guess, got no worse into Armor of Contempt, right? Because they had no AP anyway. And they can spit out like a lot of mortal wounds at 45 inches. So part of me thinks with the points decrease on like Sanguinary Guard and stuff, I could bring back the Volcons. But the Volcons, they're so swingy. Sometimes they'll be amazing, sometimes they'll be bad. It's a tough one for being Blood Angels right now. Are Redemptor Dreadnoughts the best choice? Possibly not. Are they a solid choice? I think so. I think they're a solid choice. Sometimes they can be really difficult to bring down for the enemies. Other times, not so much. Okay, Sanguinary Guard. I've got 3 squads, 2 6s and a 7 here, and I've got 4 Infernal Pistols sort of mixed between the squads. And then I've got my Whirlwind, mainly for the fight last in the Overwatch Denial. I think it's important to say that I actually only have 1 invulnerable save in this entire list, and that is on my Captain. So this list would actually be probably pretty good to run Null Zone with if I did want to run that Librarian that Rezial was running, because I'm not ever going to really hurt myself because I don't have any invulnerable saves except that 1 Captain, and surely I can remember to keep him away. 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard. I mean, Sanguinary Guard are brilliant. I've been starting the 2 6s on the board, and I've been reserving the 7-man. And the idea behind the 7-man is to use Descent on the Angels so that they can't make my charges any longer, and maybe I can use the new obscuring/charge rules, or the terrain charge rules, to basically require me to roll a 7 when I charge, rather than an 8, because I can increase my engagement range if the enemy's in a terrain piece. So a 7 with a reroll is very reliable. I should probably actually just calculate that. I don't know why I searched Andy. I meant to search any dice. At least. So a 7 is 58%. And I guess with a reroll, you'd be talking another 60. So yeah, so 50 times 0.42. 24 plus 58. So it's about 83% chance, which is up quite a bit because 8th with a reroll is 66% chance. So basically, if you use those new terrain rules, you add about 15 or 16% extra reliability to your deep strike charge. So that's why my 7's in deep strike. They can also come down and do Nakman Data or something like that because it's a 7, right? What Tony said about running 3 units of the same is potentially one-dimensional. I kind of agree with that, but I think Sanguinary Guard are just such a versatile unit. The thing that keeps me wanting to run 3 of them is they can heroically intervene, they're -1 to hit in melee, they have that great armor save, and they generally do a buttload of damage. If you're charging in turn 3, it's 5 attacks per model. If you're near your Warlord, you're hitting on 2s, and probably re-rolling 1s. And if you've got exploding 6s, then you're doing hits for days. You're killing lots of stuff. So, yes, running 3 squads of one thing is potentially predictable, but maybe Sanguinary Guard are the exception to the rule. If I was going to drop 1 squad of Sanguinary Guard, what would I replace it with? Very good question. I think if I was going to drop 1 squad of Sanguinary Guard, 220 points. I mean, that's the cost of a Leviathan Dreadnought. Would I bring a Leviathan Dreadnought? Possibly not. I might bring Terminators again because I might bring shooting Terminators, because shooting Terminators could drop in, they could shoot, and then try and make that 7-inch charge. Terminators with chainswords, or we see a lot of people still rate Relic Terminators because they're really cheap. I think you get like maybe 6 Relic Terminators for 220 points. I think they're 175 points for 5. Unfortunately, I don't own any Relic Terminators. But yeah, so there's obviously crossover between the 4 lists that we've seen today. If I had to roast myself, what would I roast myself on? Maybe sticking to this captain is the biggest roast I would give myself. Is he 3 CP or essentially 4 CP worth better than Dante? Probably not. But I would say probably definitely not worth 4 CP more than Dante. So should I just run Dante? I mean, last time I took Dante out, he killed a knight in a single turn, or I say a knight, an armiger. He killed him, he took 10 wounds off an armiger and then shot it with his infernal pistol and outright like killed it. Um, would that maybe be a better option? If I did that, then I could probably put Quake Bolt somewhere in the list, like on the incursors, to basically boost any other unit that needs the +1. That might be one way to do it. I guess the other option would be to make this squad of Sanguinary Guard much smaller, get 75 points, get a squad of Eliminators in there. Unfortunately, Dante and the Chapter Master on the bike are the same cost, and I think I want the Chapter Master because I like putting the Chapter Master rerolls on the 5-man Forlorn Fury Death Company. I think that's very valuable. It actually is like a huge buff to their initial game output. So that is my thoughts on today's lists. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope nobody felt too roasted. I hope you enjoyed the stream. We'll be back as normal next week. And I've got a bunch of content planned for the near future. So please consider subscribing. If you want to support the channel in any way, there is a Patreon link. There is a big join button under this video description, or Element Games in the UK. Every purchase used via the link in the video description as well will help support the channel. Those are all super appreciated. Thanks again. I'll catch you in the next video. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.